Welcome to the Creative Plan Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kellie, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and RPGpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
Well, we will take this moment on August the 11th for RPG Day and examine ourselves.
Yes, test time is 8, 9, 10.
Okay, so it's first, second, third.
What's the 11th?
So the 11th is examine. So take a moment to examine within and without.
I think I'll go first.
Okay. You got something good for examine?
Go for it.
Are we?
Yeah, we're still recording.
For examine, let's go with the investigate skill.
Uh-huh.
Let's just get that right out of the box.
Exactly.
So
Please use that skill.
yeah, when running my game and when playing in D&D, which I don't do as often as I used to, people don't use the investigate skill, and they don't use the investigate skill right even when they do. They'll say, I'd like to investigate this room. It's like, well, really, that's not what investigation is for. Investigation is for finding clues in a room, perhaps. It's not for finding, every single detail about this room and any given hidden thing. You have to be more specific about that. Alternatively, they'll use it for I am gonna go ahead and investigate the body. It's like, well, it's a body. It's pretty easy to loot a body. I'll give you loot without you investigating the body. I'll give you loot for not investigating the body. Don't investigate the body. That's creepy. The invasion of personal space.
Desecrating a corpse.
It's illegal in most countries.
I'm going to do a full autopsy.
They'll ask to use investigation for everything, and that's a problem that any system that has investigation or an investigation analog has. Like in Genesis, it's every time you talk to me, I will bring up Genesis.
Yes.
It's my favorite system.
Amen to that.
It's an amazing system, and it
More
doesn't
people
really
should
have.
play it.
Yes, they should. In Genesis, it's really the perception skill that takes the place of investigation, because perception takes the place of so many different things in the Genesis system. It's weird. It's one of my few gripes with the system.
Mm-hmm.
But in any system, players are like, yeah, I'm going to investigate this as if it's just examining an area, when that's not what it is. Investigation should run more like, say, Sherlock Holmes, where it's like, yeah, you look at an area. Anyone can look at an area and see evidence or clues or anything like that. It's your mental ability to link ideas, thoughts, and possibilities together. That's why it's an intelligence-based thing in D&D, and not, just kind of a wisdom thing where it's like, yeah, you're really good at spotting things. You have to be able to mentally link cause and effect. You have to examine the room and do that.
So you're basically saying that players need to associate examine with perception rather than investigate.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Because I know a lot of people who they'll generate a passive perception score and a passive investigation score.
Passive investigation.
It's a thing now.
I've never heard of that
It's on
before.
some character sheets now.
Yeah, because investigation is for finding traps, which I also disagree with.
I
Because
do
of previous
I
reasoning.
see that as more perception and or
it's
even.
like it's like investigation is something that you take your time to do, and you have to logically put things together. Whereas perception is, I see that little piece of string running across the pathway. That's a trap.
That's a seed.
Yeah.
That's perception. I don't know why anyone would use investigation for finding traps. That's ridiculous. Unless, of course, it's an extraordinary elaborate trap, in which case they're trying to figure out the mechanism that works.
Goldberg machine, Rube Goldberg
or
machine.
Or like it's a counterweighted corridor, like in some well-known Gary Gygax designed murder box, in which there's a counterweighted and super slippery corridor that drops people into lava after they go halfway down there. It's like, you could use investigation to realize that the corridor itself is segmented from everything else as you enter the corridor, because it has to be able to swivel on that counter or with the counterweight. Investigation would tell you, that's really weird. It seems like either this corridor or the rest of the entire dungeon moves. It's probably not the rest of the entire dungeon, though that could be a really cool dungeon trick.
But again, it's still not investigation.
Well, no, that would be investigation, drawing that conclusion that something here moves.
Okay.
One of these two things. Seeing the crack is generally something that I would just have as a gimme for my players, because it's a crack, unless it's very well hidden, in which case perception.
So
Or an advantage on
I
it.
might use investigation for a disarm, where you're trying to figure out
yes.
the mechanism.
Yeah, for disarm, that's fine.
For
finding
But
traps,
for
which is what a
finding
lot of people
traps,
use it for, fuck yeah, it's dumb.
See, one of my best examples from Investigate is Prince Humperdinck. Through all of the Princess's Bride, every time they stop while looking for her, and he gets off his horse, and he's like, a large man fought a small man to a standstill, and he starts reenacting their fights.
Yeah.
That's a perfect example of how
That's
investigation works.
Finding the
GM tells
tracks.
you there's the tracks and something happened here, and then you roll your investigate to figure it out.
Now, finding the tracks, that's based on wisdom. It's called a survival check.
Yep. And then investigate tells you what happened here.
Yes.
Signs of struggle. That's all I'm going to say unless you will investigate.
And see, all these things are part of examine, because you would use wisdom or just gimmies from your GM to examine the area, and then you as a player might be able to go, yeah, this is what happens on a meta level, but your character doesn't know that unless they make an investigation check. It's if you succeed, your character has successfully applied their own intelligence and cunning to this situation, and they can kind of understand what's going on.
To me, it looks like this.
Yes. And so that's why I think everyone is using investigation wrong, or just not using it
At
at all.
all.
Use it.
There's
I
quite a
pretty
few-
much just use
Yeah.
perception.
In Daggers of Freeport, you have a rogue who is a master detective. That's his
Yeah,
character.
that's-
That's his thing.
And that's where
But
investigation
he
kicks in.
does
It's like, yeah, this guy
investigate.
is
He really
amazing.
does. He
Mhm.
figured out,
And of
but
course,
he
I
used
warned you
it
guys.
accurately with the whole. It's like, it's like.
But
Of course, I warned you guys in that game. It's a lot of detective work, so that's why he made himself a great investigator.
But I mean, intelligence without wisdom is scholarship, and wisdom without intelligence is just
Hunch.
a hunch. So you could be a master detective. You could be a Sherlock Holmes analog with a super high intelligence and amazing investigator roll with a plus 15 to it for some ungodly reason. And as soon as clues are pointed out to you, you fucking know what's going on.
You're connecting the.
Yeah, but you might not be the person who notices the clue. Maybe the ranger with the eagle eyes who notices the string running along that. Yeah, they're the one that's like, do you see that? The person with high wisdom, the person who's very perceptive and can find things, they pointed out to the person who just kind of has this way of thinking that they're able to put two and two together better than anyone else. And they go, I see that string, I see where it's going, and I understand that the murder victim died at 2:23 in the morning after tripping over a small child and being bitten by a chihuahua. A saw blade swung down from this door, cleaving their hair, missing their head, but they died after a hammer came through the doorway on another string, bashing in their skull. That's investigating.
no
It's
death
also the
trap.
most ridiculous.
Again, going back to Princess Bride, because obvious things go to Princess Bride. You obviously would not put the potion in front of you.
That's another one that you can use investigation for.
Yeah.
The guy whips out one of these goblets is poisoned, or is it? And you could use investigate to basically try to read them with the whole out-investigate yourself. And then they both rolled natural 20s, one for deception, one for investigate, and then you're screwed.
And so to perceive an area is to examine it, whereas investigate is not an examination at all. It's just simply you're thinking through what's occurring.
Elementary deduction. Dear awesome.
And so that's not all I'm going to say in this video, because I'm certainly going to have some quips to say about what everyone else says, but that's my 2 bits.
That's as far as you're going to examining?
Yes.
At the moment, at least?
Everything else is just going to be short quips.
You can go.
I'll go next. For the word examine, the first thing that popped into my mind is examine your own motives.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Because well, no, it's not an alignment thing. It's whenever I've had really bad role-playing experiences, and frequently it's because, I'm going through stuff, other people are going through stuff, the game just went on way too long, you're playing Shadowrun and your GM is killing babies.
Might be. As Kellie looks at me, I rarely do that, and it's usually with emphasis. I like it when my players do that.
I mean,
and actually, to be fair,
did sit through a session where I beat 2 orphans.
Yeah.
To be fair, the GM didn't kill the babies. The villain was going to kill the babies unless we stopped him.
Hey, no, you're preaching, because that happened exactly in the game that we're talking about, and it was the audience that wound up killing the babies.
Oh no, I was talking about he was the drow.
Yeah, no, they weren't babies.
They weren't babies, yeah.
But
they were children.
But at that particular time, the group just wanted to be done with the adventure, and it was a side quest.
Oh.
The side quest never ends.
And we
The only thing that would make it worse
me and one of the other
was.
basically me and one of the other guys said, okay, so what you're saying is that we can either go to the base and do the thing that the adventure's going to be over on, because that's basically why we're here, or we can do this side quest and save babies, when our main quest is to save the world. Now, yes, if we save the babies, we'll get more XP, and typically we'll be able to be better off because we'll have more skills and we'll be able to fight them. But you know something? You brought us back from the dead to do this mission.
There's the greater good.
Yeah, but I'm
And
sorry, if you threaten the
just-
babies, that's emotional blackmail, and you want to help the babies.
And we and we just don't care. We want to be
Honestly,
over with this adventure.
Yeah,
Just
that's
let the baby die.
that sounds like they should have examined the group's moment, and it's like maybe we should wrap up for the night.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
that
this,
goes
no,
back
no,
to
no.
what we
This
talked
wasn't
about
the
yesterday.
night. This was like a long
Oh.
I mean, this was years
Oh God.
of gaming group, and we were just done.
Sometimes you need to let a campaign
Then
die.
it's time to switch to a different campaign.
Yeah.
Do something like to refresh yourselves. Literally, hey, let's drop some new characters just to get a different perspective. You could always theoretically go back to the other one.
Yeah.
That's why
It
it's nice.
One shot.
Go on
Exactly.
a moonlight
It's-
for a
it's
bit.
very-
We were both cybered and punked out.
Yeah. It's very, it gets.
And going back to examine, I will admit that me and the other guy pretty much deliberately wrecked his campaign. And part of it was on purpose because we were going, we don't want to do this side baby quest.
Yeah.
And the GM went, okay, you get bad karma. And I went,
Yeah.
okay. we get bad karma. The other player was like really upset for a while, but I just let's just be over. And honestly, I did not handle it really well at all, and my motives were far from pure on it. And I should have just kind of like taken myself kind of out of the game. But it was one of those things where we've been doing it for so
It's ritual
long.
at that point.
Yeah. You know, it was. I was basically playing so that way I could, you know, meet with my friends every week.
Yeah.
You know, and again, it was just the wrong week on the wrong mission on the wrong, and it just went downhill from there. So you know, if ever you just examine your own motives every once in a while.
Give yourself that check.
Give yourself that check.
About 30-ish minutes.
Okay.
For me, I guess, remember to examine your character sheets. I mean, seriously.
I love you. Lucky?
Well, no, that's just, make sure you know what your racial abilities are. But no, examine your character sheets, because it's like, all too often, it's like, where's my speed? Where's my,
Where's my speed? I must
Exact-
have snorted it all.
no, and spell DCs and those types of things. Like, because most of they don't have it directly on the main sheet, but I like to have it on my main sheet, so I write it down, so I don't have to hunt for it.
Oh my god, that is such a good point. I've DM for a lot of novice players, and the Necromancer in my Saturday campaign that I ran last night on August the 10th, a Saturday that certainly is not in the future, is a new player, and they decided to play a Necromancer.
That's a rough class to play.
That's-
Wizard
that's
that's
rough.
an advanced class.
But they love the spells. Like they highly enjoy the character and the spell casting and all that, and they understand like the math behind spell slots and all that stuff just fine. But they just never remember their spell save DC, and it's like,
Because it's
That
usually
is-
buried in the back,
Yeah.
and it's one little tiny thing. That's why on my character sheets, whenever I have a caster, I write it directly at the near the top,
Spell
like underneath,
DC and your
and
attack
then I
modifier.
highlight it because that way. But if you're examining your sheets, your character sheet, and you know where things typically are, I mean, because different games have different formats, and heck, even the same game, but you get like an official character sheet or an unofficial character sheet.
Bootleg D&D.
Exactly.
It moves
might
around.
be in different places, but examine it so that you don't. I mean, because we're all guilty of like, that's
You're
right.
excited.
Where is it?
You're in the role playing and forget the ROLL on your paper.
Exactly, when you have to but if you have it, if you examine it and you refresh your memory, not just.
And it comes back to, like, I remember back in the day, like, Riffs. Riffs, you had, like, 30 skills, you had your fighting, which was, like, 8 different stats. Rewriting your stuff helps you memorize. And a lot of people don't do that anymore in the era of just quick print and go.
yeah, I'll be fair, I don't rewrite my character sheets.
It depends if it's a couple levels where it's not
Or cheat
dramatic or
sheets.
anything.
And
It's easy to.
and going back to Genesis, remembering what all your talents are.
Yeah.
Holy crap, this is a
That's-
3-page monstrosity
Yeah.
character sheet. I
Talents.
love it to death, but
It's beautiful, but
Lord.
it's paperwork. It really is.
But you really, right before you start gaming again,
Don't die.
are you with me?
re-examine your sheet so you become reminded of
Got
all
so
those
excited.
different trees.
What was that? Did the seat break or did it just
I
skip?
had the legs of the chair
Oh.
propped up on the heels of my feet, and then they slipped.
You failed your
I failed my
Coordination.
coordination roll.
I was gonna say deck save, but let's keep the Genesis.
Yeah. No, the Genesis sheet, like, you got a sheet of all your base stats and skills,
Mm-hmm.
and like your weapons. It's kind of like the front page of the regular D&D sheet. You have an entire page of fluff and inventory.
The brief
It's not
talents.
fluff, it's background. Like you get your.
It's mostly fun.
It's fluff in inventory.
It's basically your
It's
motivations.
RPG reminders.
It's
Yes.
your motivation.
And then you have the talent tree.
And then you have talents, which are
talent
effectively
one.
things that you spend and use. It's almost exactly like the D&D 3-page character sheet when you think about it, because in D&D it's your base stats, your skills, and your attacks, and some features.
Mm-hmm. Your
Fluff and
sheet,
inventory.
and then your spells.
But as you spend your experience points, those
Those
grids get pretty beefy.
Yeah.
So it's like you want to examine them, and I like right before the session starts again, I like to re-examine my character sheet. And I mean, I've actually started doing a journal now of the games, not just and right before the game starts, I re-examine those notes, because even though the podcast is available and stuff, just having that tangible reference with me, whereas I won't necessarily have the podcast with me, that I've started doing that. And of course it's color coded.
Yes, each character is a different ink color.
No, each campaign is a different,
And you're starting to take down the same quotes that I did.
Yeah, just a couple of them, that in the last 2 sessions, that just because it was hilarious.
Damn funny.
Yeah. And
It's become a thing
yeah.
now.
Mm-hmm. So,
I'm glad I started it.
Yeah.
but I find that it's so much easier to keep track if I do that, and I re-examine those before a session.
Mm-hmm.
Because also it helps, like, if somebody didn't listen to the podcast but they were gone for like a couple sessions. Like we have this one where characters were specifically created in case they can't always be there. It's a once a month game, but they can go in and out, so that because life happens and we're all really busy. This way, where did we leave off? Oh, well, let me show you, here, let me give you just the highlights,
Mm-hmm.
When we last left our intrepid adventure.
Exactly.
See you next time.
In D&D, at least, I always make my characters tell me what happened last. Like, my players tell me what happened last time, so I know what the hell they remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
that's a
Jim,
good way of re-examining.
Because that's what matters. Not what I did, what anyone did. What they think happened is what happened.
Is their reality.
And, because Jim will sometimes ask, well, why don't you tell us when last we met? And I'm like,
it's also a great way of going through your notes.
Where was
and
I?
Your GM stuff while they're talking.
Exactly. So, I've started doing that, and a couple of the other players in our group also keep notes as to what occurs. So that's nice, because then we can kind of compare notes.
Kind of keep focused.
Of course, I don't do that in our Twilight Imperium game because it's so episodic.
Yeah. So that leads to my one, which is re-examine, but from a different point of view. As a storyteller, both GM and player, because players are storytellers too for their character story, re-examine at milestones your character's story. Now, it could be the GM needs to re-examine the story of your story was going here, but now it's going here, so change tactics and stories. As a player, this is a fun one for players, though, is see what your character you created was and what your character is at, say, like level 2, level 3 at your milestones. How is your character developed as a character? Because we all know when you play a character, and that player has a personality of his own that is counter to your own, and you're actually in the zone playing your character because I would do this, but my guy Thorin the Paladin will definitely do this because it's stupid, but it's what he would do because it's the character's character. Re-examine your character or your story where it is. Because it could be, hey, your players were playing a story where we're supposed to defeat the dragon to save the kingdom to do this, but then you realize after playing a couple months with the player group, they don't care about the dragon, they're actually wanting to play an economy game. Seriously, where they are more important about saving the alchemical town and letting the rest of the kingdom burn to play the potion game of selling potions at different places. So re-examine where the story is and where it needs to go.
So they need to trade with the dragon.
See, that could be the thing. It could be well, we're going to make a love potion and give it to the dragon and then have him carry our wares for us from town to town. It's just re-examine where the story is, whether it's a character or an adventure, GM or player level, and see where it's going. Because it could be,
you might need a redirect.
Yeah, you might need a reboot for the character to fix things. It might be that you're
like
playing...
Your campaign manager that you're referring to probably should have done that to ascertain maybe my players really aren't, that we need to redirect.
Re-examine, what they could have done at that point is had a heroic last stand where you guys either die or don't know where the ending is, and then fade to black. And hey guys, we got to do another campaign. I watched this really cool movie, and I got this great idea for another adventure that is completely different.
We have to cleanse the palate once in a while, which is nice to do lots of different types of games than just one of the same group, the same characters on the same campaign for an extended period of time. Otherwise, it can get a little too pedestrian, and you need stuff to really break you out of the
comfort zone.
Well, when you're talking about re-examining the character, part of that is the character's progression.
But so how many players never progress their characters emotionally, or
but that's actually a part of it, because if you're playing, if again ROLL versus ROLE, if you're playing the same thing all of the time and there isn't any growth and there isn't any, that's kind of an indication of being stuck in a rut. So some players just
they
playing
do,
that
and
character.
that they're comfortable
with that, and you don't necessarily want to take a player completely out of their comfort zone. But what you can do as a GM is you go, okay, here's your little box, and I don't want to take you out of your box, but what happens if you were given this choice?
Which is as a storyteller, that's part of it.
As a storyteller, as a GM, one of the things you want to do is you want to set up situations where you don't know how the players are going to react.
That's the best game.
That's the best game. And the other important part is that it doesn't matter to the GM which path they take down, because they're both interesting.
Yeah.
Because there isn't they're going to do this and, they're going to win, or they're going to do that and they're going to lose. Whichever path they go down, it's just their life.
It's the story.
It's the story.
Yeah, I actually had a Scion character that the way she started out, was a very specific way, and through a campaign, by the end of it, this character was broken emotionally. Yeah, I'm looking at you. She is emotionally scarred and damaged.
If she wasn't damaged, she would have died on a meteorite collision.
True, it's true. But the way the story progressed, her heart
was a damned if you do, damned if you don't for the dwarf too.
That's true, but for this character,
his heart got broken and he got hit by a meteorite.
But Loki used her as a fucking foil. Her own father, in her point of view, played her like she was, and
let's take a moment and examine. What would Loki do?
That's true, but what would be a child's reaction to being used as a...
That's exactly... As a character, you're examining the character's natural
Exactly,
progression.
so that character who started off one way, when I look at her at the beginning of the game, where she was this mischievous,
stage magician,
and now she's dark and horribly depressed.
She's on her way of being like Morgan Le Fay.
She's about ready to sign up with her half-sister Hell and, fucking reap the...
reap the whirlwind.
This character, because the certain GM like basically almost made it that her character is freaking responsible for Ragnarok.
Now, see, that's the beauty of Apocalypse in Scion. It's fated to happen. No one person is responsible for it.
From my
Except for the
character,
people who are responsible for it.
exactly, except for the certain things that happened during the game. It typically wound up being my character's chore.
A child of Loki, it was the greatest GM
Because of
school
course
ever.
Loki
Loki gives the
Ragnarok
worst
anyways.
directions ever.
Oh, of course.
He sent them
So-
to us an auction, and he just said, "Don't win the stone. Don't let anyone
No,
else win."
he didn't even really say don't win it. It was more like, but so basically this character now essentially believes that Ragnarok's gonna happen because she fucked up so many times.
Well, Ragnarok was always going to happen.
The ring too. I mean,
That was just
the
magical. The bad guy told
Every-
her, "You have this magic ring. A family member of yours will die every day if you don't get rid of it. I'm the bad guy. I don't want the ring.
Kellie,
Throw it in the ocean for all I care."
You
They're
always
on a
have
boat.
very strong emotions about this
Yes,
campaign.
this was
and I
an
think we
amazing
should
campaign.
examine.
What would Freud say
Yeah,
about
she-
your character?
She definitely.
It's
did
your
shrink.
mother.
Yeah. So.
No. Her mom was in that silent game and scared us all.
Yeah.
Her character was a daughter of Poseidon. Maybe. No, Nord.
Nord.
A seal
Yeah. Oh my God.
who had her boys. And then when she got tired of them.
Oh, she went so dark and this was like Trevor was
13.
no, he wasn't even
12,
that. I
13,
think it was
something
like
like that.
11 or 12.
Hey, he handled his love triangle like a champ.
He did. It was so sweet. No, it was because here's this little boy who's
12-year-old.
never, and he's playing a sign of Uller, and
Who had a chain wallet that turns into a 50 caliber rifle.
yeah, and
Because Scion characters have magic relics.
Right.
so he winds up meeting this nymph, so to speak. She's
Uber.
working for
Her
the
mom.
Titans, the bad guys, so to speak.
Her mom, the Titan of
Yeah.
Rain, who drowns people and gets the drowned
But-
people's souls.
He was so sweet, and he was a perfect gentleman, which I applaud him for that.
I played her like Ariel.
He just,
Cute little redhead.
And now
the
he's-
youngest of the 7 sisters.
so they actually really like each other.
He
So
can-
they see beyond. It was like it's kind of Romeo and Juliet, where the two opposing factions, and here's these star-crossed lovers.
And
You
the
know.
Norse pantheon has a habit of seducing
Oh,
the
yeah.
opposite side and bringing them over.
Mm-hmm.
And like I basically kept asking my character, "Are you genuine in your emotions to her? Are you deceiving?" And he's like, "No, I
And
really
he
like her and I want to be nice."
he had to sit there and examine exactly how he wanted to take it, and I applaud him for being the outstanding young man.
And by you throwing the ring in the water, she succeeded in her mission for their
So
mother.
she didn't have to kill him.
Well, she never had to kill him. It was just the ring that she was
Yeah.
supposed to get. She was the one there to pick up the ring. But you guys didn't know until the very end when the bad guy's like, "You threw the ring in the ocean." Yeah.
Well, gee, I think we've examined today's subject quite
Yeah.
enough.
Yes. Kellie's got many GM issues with her husband.
Yeah, no. it's-
Freud would say you must take your husband home in a underwear. Brag.
But yeah, no, that character is broken.
But in an awesome way, because look at the
But
character
she has
growth.
this whole total arc of.
As opposed to Val, who, is totally
Val
different
has a
character.
different arc,
Yeah, her arc's totally different. She ended up with babies.
baby.
Baby.
And again, examine your feelings. And just the fact that you're still feeling so much after
That is
this
how
time,
awesome
Well,
it is.
yeah.
That's how awesome the game was.
Exactly, and the character had to examine themselves
Mhm.
because it's like they're not who they started out as.
Which goes back to
They're
re-examine
completely-
your milestones of your character.
I'd like to examine the statistics on RPG a day for how many times in every single talk people bring it back to the word,
The
just
word,
like
yeah.
that. I'd really like to examine those statistics.
Hey, I mean, because this year is completely different than previous years. It's like
I
a
like-
sentence.
I was just telling Scott earlier.
A sentence, that'd be
Yeah, it's like What's the first
That's
RPG
really
you
narrow.
played?
Yeah,
it's
this gives
30
you so much more expanse as to, interpretation and...
You guys have all gone like very philosophical with Examine,
Not
and I'm
always.
like, I'm just, well, no, with Examine specifically.
No,
And
because don't you remember when we started, like, I was like, yep, I'm examining the but you said it when you did the...
Yeah, it's like, I immediately went into investigate. He was like, game mechanic. And you're all like, philosophically, what does it mean
Well,
to be
because you took the obvious one.
Because I had a really good hot take on it.
Because you're like, damn it, people, use investigate and use it correctly.
Mine was pretty not philosophical. It was explicit too. Examine your character sheets.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's all about story, guys. Re-examine your story, where you started, where you've been,
And
where you want to go.
I'm almost always philosophical. It's one of my...
You're very cerebral.
Mm-hmm. You're like,
Gee,
examine your motivation.
I think we should bring this to a close.
We should, since it's closing time.
Yeah, as I
Closing
examine
time. Usually Kelly's the one that does that. She's somebody tired.
I am.
And tomorrow's is friendship.
Friendship.
Gee, we could just go out in the parking lot and do tomorrow.
Circle of friendship time. And that's
Let me get all of
that's
you.
it there.
Let me get all of you.
Tuscan stuff.
Tuscan bookmarks.
Thank you for listening to D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, a member of the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And remember, be careful out there. There be dragons about.
On the battlefield, I'm a warrior, ready to kill or be killed. I've defeated orcs from the north, sent Kandorian demon spawns back to the depths, and drank with Cimmerian heroes. But when I get back from a hard day of disemboweling my enemies, I enjoy nothing more than to open my castle doors and find a dungeon crate as my reward for blood well spilled. Designed for role players and tabletop gamers, Dungeon Crate is a monthly subscription box service with a treasure hoard of loot you can use on or off the battlefield. Miniatures, dice, tokens, coins, maps, modules, terrain pieces, handcrafted items, RPG jewelry, and more are yours for only a few gold per month. You even get a digital crate along with a physical one as an added bonus. So what say you? Are you ready for postal glory? Oh boy. DungeonCrate.com. Let the adventure begin!
I don't know, I think these one-word ones are a lot more provocative than the previous RPGA days, which were much more specific.
Yeah.
This gives you a lot more range for impressions and stuff.
Starting off with a full sentence. What is your blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
you know, this,
What was your favorite, or what was the first time you did this, and
as an interviewer, I start with those questions, and then I find I normally just throw them out, and it gets me to the questions that I want to ask later.
the more evocative ones that delve